What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Long time no see. Today we're gonna dive into one of my favorite types of photography. Night photography. There's something magical about capturing the world after dark. It's like seeing familiar scenes in a whole new light. Night photography has taught me a lot of things about light and composition. So I'm really excited to bring you guys my tips and tricks on how you can do city/urban photography at night. Before we jump into the tips, I wanted to go ahead and set the stage here for you. Night photography is comprised of various subcategories in this sort of category. You have astrophotography, landscape photography, light painting photography, portraits, and city or urban photography. In this video, I wanted to go ahead and focus more on the city photography. Some of these tips are geared to some of those other concepts of photography and subgenres. Before I head over to the streets, I wanted to go ahead and go over a couple of different items that you'll need for today's shoot. Of course, the first thing that we're gonna need will be the camera. The second object that we will need will be a wide angle lens. I usually recommend a 35 or even a 24, but if you have any wider, sometimes you can get a little bit more creative. The third will be a tripod, ironically. One of the last things that you'll need will be a way to control remotely or have a way to set a timer for your shutter release. Now that we have these four crucial items, let's go ahead and take a look at the techniques and concepts that we're going to implement to make sure that we get a great image. First is the exposure triangle. Second, photo composition. Third and last, simple division and multiplication. And don't worry, it's not going to get super complicated. It's super simple, and I'll show you guys once we're out there. And yes, that's a picture of my cat, at least one of them. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about or don't know any of these techniques, I'll go ahead and do a quick summary of everything and why I'm using these techniques for this specific situation. If you guys have already mastered all of these techniques and ideas, feel free to go ahead and skip ahead, and we'll see you guys in a bit. Now that we have all this basic knowledge, let's go ahead and put it into the real world. For now, let's go ahead and set our settings so that they're pretty much making our image visible and we can see what's going on. One of the first things that I like to look into is our composition to see where we are in the image, what are we looking at, and what do we want to focus on. Composing a shot can be a little bit overwhelming, especially with all of these types of diagrams and rules that we have to follow. To make it simple, let's go ahead and just focus on the rule of thirds. The basic idea is to put the most important things either on the lines or the intersections. For example, if we look at this image, the subject, being the lady here on the screen, is on the right third of the image, with her being on the right side and our second subject being the empty tracks on the left side. Now, the real reason why we're looking at composition first is because I just want you to go ahead and look at your scene. Look what you're working with, where the light is, where it's coming from, so that way you know what kind of settings you'll have to set to make sure that you get the best image. Okay, if I adjust it a little bit, I want to have the cross path be right in the bottom right corner there. That looks good right there. Okay, now let's go ahead and adjust our aperture. Now, just to start with, I do want to have most of the things in focus. So if we look at the triangle, hold on there for a second. Let's go ahead and take a look at the exposure triangle. If you go ahead and go onto Google and just Google exposure triangle, you'll come up with something like this. This will actually help us determine what settings we need to adjust to make sure that we get the style and look that we're trying to achieve for our image. We have three settings: ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. ISO is the sensitivity light value given to the sensor or film roll. The higher we go on ISO, the more sensitive the sensor is to light, but the higher amount of grain is visible in your image. On the right side, we have shutter speed. Now with shutter speed, it's a little bit different. The lower you go on the number, the more light you'll let in, but the movement will be more noticeable. Finally, similar to shutter speed, with aperture, the lower the number, the more light we will let in. Now this will control the depth of field of the image, meaning the subject that you're focusing on will only have a certain amount of space that will be in focus. A basic rule to remember is the higher the number, the more things will be in focus, but less light will come in. The lower the number, the more light we will get in, but less things will be in focus.
So I actually want to have most of the things in focus, but not everything. So I'm going to go ahead and set it in a neutral zone, which I think 5.6, f-stop of 5.6 should be good there. Now, if we go ahead and look at the ISO, I think I'm going to keep it at 400. I think that should be pretty good. Of course, the higher the number we go, the more grain we introduce into the image, which we don't want. For now, we're just going to go ahead and keep it there at 400. The lower, of course, the less grain you will get, and you always want to have less grain on your image for a cleaner image, unless grainy image is what you're going for. All right, let's go ahead and bring the shutter speed down. We're bringing that shutter speed down. That should go ahead and introduce more light. So we set it 1/8. That gives us a pretty good visibility. We can see what's going on, and we can see pretty much most of the things in there. Now, the lower the shutter speed, the more movement we will see. So we take a test picture here. All right, so I'm gonna take another one here just because we didn't get enough movement there, so we couldn't see exactly the movement that I was capturing, right? So once this tracks goes, we're gonna go ahead and take another picture and we'll compare those pictures, see the movement. We can actually might be able to see it with these people here. We're just gonna try that, and then we'll try one more here when the tracks goes. Actually, you can see it with the car.
The reason why we see this effect is because the little door that opens up to let light in is set for a longer period of time, painting the light across the image.
Now, looking at this image right now, if we look at the bottom corner there, bottom left corner by the right third, we'll be able to see that we are on our meter 1.7 stops darker. So it's a little dark. We want to go ahead and brighten it up here. So we need to go almost 2 stops. One of the fun things that we can do here to determine how much I need to move is duplicating or dividing our numbers. So for example, right now, we are at 400 ISO. If I double 400 to 800, that will give us 1 stop of light. So now we have 0.7, we're under 0.7 stops of light. So that means that we can go ahead and switch one more thing to introduce more light. I don't want to do the ISO and I don't want to do the f-stop just because I still want to keep most of the things in focus. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the shutter speed. Now this will introduce more movement, so we'll be able to see the light trails of the cars. So for 1 stop, almost 1 stop of light, which I'm going to definitely do 1 full stop. So that's 1 stop right there. And actually that will go ahead and put us right at where we need to be. And then this should give us a pretty cool image here. Perfect timing with the tracks. Our meter says that it's 0.0. So that means it's properly exposed. We're going to go ahead and wait here a second. And that looks great. I love that. We might be able to get a couple more movement here. Perfect. Now, a cool thing as well is that most of the cameras will have these fancy features that will allow us to time the shot. So that way we don't also introduce movement into the actual shot itself. So we set a 2-second timer. So whenever I hit the button, it'll take 2 seconds and eventually take the image. Now, if we wanted to go ahead and introduce more light trails, I can bring my ISO down to maybe, we can bring it down a stop. And then let's bring this 1 more stop. Bonus tip, most cameras default to 1/3 of a stop. So if you only need 1 stop of light, you can turn your dial 3 times and that will be a full stop. You can also see this change happen in the meter in your camera. 1, 2, 3, that should be a full stop of light there. And so that way we can also determine what, how much exposure we're bringing into the image. So we'll do that 1 more time. I'm gonna trigger it a little bit more later. Beautiful. So we have more things in focus. We have the light trail. We have perfect exposure for our image. Now we have all of this. Let's go ahead and get some pictures done. See what else we can come up with. What was that?
Good clear night.
Yes, it is. Into the actual middle of the road, so we'll see how this turns out.
Night photography can be a bit frustrating, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So hopefully with these tips and tricks, you're able to understand and plan out what you're wanting to try out here as night photography. Now, some of these settings and some of the things that I've been trying here today can be applied into any of our other sort of subcategories of night photography, like astrophotography, portrait, light painting, anything like that. First, go ahead and figure out what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what is the look that you're trying to achieve. And then from there, determine what settings you might need to change to make sure that you accomplish this goal. Well guys, that is all that I have for you guys today. If you guys like this video, feel free to go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to click share and subscribe if you guys haven't already. I'll bring more content like this so that way you guys can learn a little bit more about photography, and I can I don't know, grow a little community here. Well, once again guys, thank you so much for coming in and checking today's video. We will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.